following is being brought to you by Vertical Vet. Rethink your GPO. Hi, I'm Dr. Ernie Ward, Executive Director of Education for Vertical Vet, and we know that pet owners around the country have questions about coronavirus and their pets. And to help you understand what you need to know about coronavirus and dogs and cats and other companion animals, we are pleased to bring with you today a public health and infectious disease expert, Dr. Elizabeth Broel. And Dr. Elizabeth Broel speaks all around the country and around the world, speaking about infectious diseases, One Health initiatives, and of course, what we're going to talk about today, potential coronavirus infections. And so please welcome Dr. Broel. Dr. Broel, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Dr. Ward. Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
It is. And I'll tell you, we are getting so many questions around, what this means for me and my dog or my cat or my ferret or whatever pet they have, that we really were excited to bring you on because there's so many myths. And so I'd like to sort of just jump right into some of the top questions that we're getting. And without a doubt, the number one question that we're getting, Dr. Broel, is can dogs or cats get COVID-19?
So the short answer is no. There have been a few very rare cases of pets that were coming out of households that had a positive human case of COVID-19 that did test positive for COVID-19 on a test. But thus far, none of those pets have become clinically very ill. And experimentally, we still have a lot to learn about this disease. But even in the experimental models thus far, it's very unlikely that these companion animals are going to become infected and become clinically ill with COVID-19.
Right. And there's been a lot of confusion. There's some early research that's just been published out of China. But again, the key takeaway message here is you are not at any risk for your pet contracting COVID-19 as far as a natural setting in the U.S.
That's correct.
Okay. The second question that we're getting is along the same lines. And can people get COVID-19 from their pets?
So again, I think the short answer to that is probably not. It's really hard for an animal. So an animal that's not infected with a disease is not going to be able to infect someone else, either another animal or another person. Now, while we don't think that animals can act as something like a fomite, which is basically an object that can transport the virus from one item to another, so think a door handle or your countertop, animal bodies aren't really an ideal vector for that, but we cannot say with 100% certainty that you can't actually get COVID-19 from an animal who may be transporting the virus on their body. So, best practice would indicate that you still should always wash your hands after you touch your pets. If your pet has been around someone else who's positive for COVID-19, you should make sure that probably bathe them, wash your hands after you handle them.
And Dr. Broel,
certainly don't kiss them on the face. Don't let them lick you.
Right, especially if there's someone in your home that's infected with COVID-19. And again, we have clear evidence from the original SARS pandemic in 2003. There were no cases worldwide of a dog or a cat or any companion animal transmitting the SARS infection to humans. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Another very, very common question that we're getting is it safe to walk my dog, go outside with my pet, or visit my veterinarian during these times? I mean, we're hearing a lot of, clinics that are closing or only seeing emergencies. We're hearing people afraid to go to dog parks. What do you say to those concerns?
So it is absolutely safe to go outside, and I would recommend that you do go outside if you are negative and you are not sick. Not only for your pet's health, but for your own mental health. It's good to just get outside as long as you are practicing all of the social distancing measures that have been recommended. So that means, humans wearing masks. Your pets don't need to wear a mask, despite the silly memes you've seen of pets wearing their masks. Make sure that you stay 6 feet away from other people. Your pets need to stay 6 feet away from other people and other pets. So make sure that your pet is on a leash. I would avoid dog parks because, our dogs aren't going to pay attention when we tell them to stay 6 feet away from other dogs. But yeah, I think as long as you are not ill and you're following those measures that have been recommended, I think it's fine to go outside. Likewise, if you have cats that like to go outside, it's best to keep them in so that they're not roaming around the neighborhood. And yes, it's absolutely safe to go visit your vet clinic if your pet needs veterinary care. I would encourage you to call your vet first and find out what type of social distancing measures they've implemented, because a lot of veterinarians are still seeing patients, but they're moving to things like curbside service and whatnot. So I would just call them ahead of time and make sure that you're compliant with whatever protocols they've put in place.
Right. Well, along the same lines, a very common question is, can pets spread COVID-19 to other pets? Again, I think this is part of the confusion from some early scientific data. So can my dog or cat give it to another dog or cat or another pet in my family?
I think that's highly unlikely. Again, there is the question of if a pet can act as a fomite, meaning if it's not infected, but it can carry the virus on its body. In theory, I suppose that's possible, but in real life, what we're seeing is I think that's highly, highly unlikely.
Okay, so again, it's safe to go for a walk. It's safe to go outside. It's safe to visit your veterinarian if you need emergency care in particular. Your pets are not at any risk of really spreading it one to another, at least no evidence exists of that so far. So let's kind of jump into another question that we're getting quite commonly. What should I do with my pets if someone in my home gets COVID-19? So we're hearing this a lot, in cities where there are hotspots, major outbreaks, maybe people live alone or have limited access to people helping them. What do they do with their dog or cat if they contract COVID-19?
So ideally, if a person contracts COVID-19, they should self-isolate and have someone who's not infected in the household taking care of the pet, if possible. I realize that's not always possible. And, there are different states and different counties and different cities that have different local laws about whether or not you're allowed to take your pet outside. So first, I would say you need to make sure that you're in compliance with whatever your local laws are stating. But if you can have a non-infected member take care of the pet, that's ideal. If that's not possible, then when you are caring for the pet, you just want to make sure if you're infected that you wear a mask, you wear gloves, you minimize the contact with the pet. You certainly don't hug it, kiss it, snuggle it, all of the things that we love to do with our pets. You don't want to do that while you're infected with COVID-19. Again, just erring on the side of utmost caution to protect the pet.
Absolutely. And once again, I would advise that if your dog or cat does come in contact with someone known to be infected with COVID-19, I would encourage you to bathe that pet immediately upon return. And of course, as Dr. Broel continues to say, wash your hands. Good hygiene is really our best defense when it comes to preventing the transmission of COVID-19 from humans to our beloved pets. Dr. Broel, again, this is still very, very early days, but if it's anything like SARS, it seems like there's a much more likely chance of me, if I'm infected with COVID-19, transmitting it to a cat or a ferret than many of the other companion animal species. Is that still true?
That is true. Early signs are suggesting that cats and ferrets seem to be a little more susceptible to this disease as compared to our other companion animals. However, this is such a new disease. It's going to take years to study to really fully understand the scope of it. But thus far, I think as long as everyone is practicing social distancing and good hygiene and using some good old-fashioned common sense, I think that even our cats and our ferrets will be fine.
All right, so in summary, Dr. Broel, correct me if I'm wrong, but A, you cannot get COVID-19 from your pet. There is no evidence of natural transmission from a dog or a cat or any other animal to a human. This is a human-to-human disease, correct?
That's correct.
Number 2, you are at very, very low risk of transmitting COVID-19 to your dog or cat or ferret or whatever animal you may have. If you are infected with COVID-19, you should use personal protective equipment to lessen that risk. Is that also true?
That is true.
It is perfectly acceptable to go walk your dog, go play, do whatever you normally would do as long as you are practicing good social distancing practices as determined by your municipality or state, correct?
Yes, and I would encourage you to get outside if you can. None of us like being trapped inside all day long.
And any final words of advice as, pet owners, again, are concerned about this? Anything you'd like to tell them? Don't abandon your dog. Don't worry about, this isn't a big problem. What would you say to help allay those fears?
I mean, I would agree with that. I think it's going to be a very rare instance where you can legitimately justify abandoning your dog because of COVID-19. There are ways to handle it. in a less dramatic fashion than that.
Well, Dr. Elizabeth Broel, thank you so much for answering these questions. An infectious disease public health expert here today as part of Vertical Vet's COVID-19 webinar series. Thank you so much. Again, if you have questions, don't hesitate. Ask your veterinarian, because we want the same thing that you want, and that is to stay safe and healthy during this time. On behalf of Vertical Vet, I am Dr. Ernie Ward. Thank you for watching. Bye.